keeping you connected 1 hour at a time. For more information, please visit thegalacticconnection.com.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome to the Mind Cemetery. This is where the paranoia about the paranormal comes to rest. As always, we will do our best every week to delve into the unexplained, weird, intriguing, and sometimes creepy topics you won't hear on your local news. I'm your host, Chip, and along with me is my co-host, Nicole. You can catch the Mind Cemetery every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for 2 hours exclusively here on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. If you like what you hear, then subscribe to us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter by searching Mind. You can also find us on iTunes by searching UFO Paranormal Radio Network, listen to our archives on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network main page, and go deeper into the archives by searching for the Mind Cemetery on blogtalkradio.com. You can find us online at mindcemetery.com. While on our site, you will find our show calendar to see who we will have on as a guest in the near future. Check out the strange news feed, peruse our extensive archive of past shows in our archive blogs, track UFO activity via the Alien Stalker, and as always, be sure to check out the critically acclaimed, often imitated but never duplicated MindCemetery.com blog, where you can get information on upcoming shows, information on past shows, and plenty of interesting nuggets and tidbits that are blogged about throughout the week. You can join the discussion in the UFO Paranormal Radio Network chat room on Pal Talk, or call in to ask your favorite. Hello, thanks for joining us. I guess that's us. We're live, Nicole.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, kind of snuck up on us a little quick there, didn't it?
Well, you know.
Yeah, that happens. Sometimes things sneak up on you, you know, like a baby.
You should, what did you just say?
Like a baby sneaking up on you.
Chip, you've had 8 months to acclimate to this already. Get over it.
Never.
Our audience is more acclimated with having a baby than you.
Well, let them raise it then. Come on over anytime.
Excuse me, listening audience. Would any of you raise my child? Because the father has officially quit.
I give up already.
Please. Please, this baby needs a mother.
I'm a miserable failure at minus 2 months.
That's ridiculous.
Keeps it
it looks like we already have a listener that's having a kid next January, too. So there you go. We'll have twinsies.
January twins, right?
Twinsies! No, I'm early January, Linus.
Oh, now it's early January? See, the date's changing. This kid's not even mine.
That's been the accusation. Chip's been going on about this for 6 months. And the kid's not his. I can't wait to have a...
Now it's January 1st or whatever. Now it's New Year's, baby, for God's sakes.
Well, I'm actually already dilated. For those of you that don't speak the lingo, that means this baby's coming, man.
There's no stopping it?
There's no stopping her. She says, I'll come when I feel like it, and y'all can shut up.
Do it while I sleep, baby.
Oh, shush.
Do me your first favor is just do it while I'm asleep. So.
Anyway, hi, welcome to the show. So, in case y'all missed it last week, me and Joe fought for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And I just left.
Chip was very mad because he wasn't, what was your words that you felt we hijacked the show?
It totally did get hijacked. I left. I was like, I'm done. You know, I'm not dealing with this.
We didn't miss him. Me and Joe entertained ourselves.
Obviously. You didn't know I was gone for like 40 minutes.
Well, he got me pretty riled up about a couple things, so.
Of course. That's what he does. That's what he do best down there in the bayou.
Oh, the bayou. Anyway, what are we doing tonight, Chip? Do we actually have a guest tonight, or are you going to make me argue with Joe some more?
No, we're going to have a guest because God knows I can't take any more Joe arguments.
That's true.
You know, Obama wins and cats and dogs start living together for Joe.
Mass hysteria.
So, yeah, I'm kind of watching the Bears-Niners game, and the Bears aren't doing so good.
Oh, poor baby.
Oh, for the love of God. Oh, I thought it was an interception right there. But anyway.
Shush! Who do we have?
Yes, tonight we have Nancy DeTerry. God, I knew I was going to screw it up. Her last name. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's French.
It looks...
Am I right, Nancy?
Actually, yes, you're right. It would be Duterte, but Duterte, that's close enough. I'll take that.
Oof, brutal. Killed it all around. There you go. Nancy is herself a radio show host, Nicole. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Hot leads and cold cases on Para X Radio. Check it out.
I was trying to pick...
Can I finish?
Yes.
I mean, in other words, just shut up for a minute, would you?
All right.
It's that simple. You know how much smoother the show was without you, for God's sakes? Can you go away again for a couple months?
Anyway, she's a radio host.
Yes, on Para X Radio. Every Friday night for 1 hour.
And CBS.
On CBS Radio. See, it's...
Oh, wow.
Yes, much better than us here at the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
No, not better, just different.
There you go. I like that. It is definitely different here. You know, we've got crickets and frogs and things screwing up modems and motherboards and swamps and bugs. And drinking. But yeah, she also is called the Skeptical Psychic, and that's why I thought you would love her coming on, Nicole, because you're the skeptic, of course. Everyone knows that.
I don't believe in anything.
Yeah, you're the denialist. You're not even a nihilist. You're just the denialist.
My question, well, not a question so much as an interjection. Chip, this entire time that we've been talking to Miss Nancy, prior to the start of the show and through the little bit here, I was trying to peg her voice because her voice sounded super familiar to me, and I think I have it. And I think she might have a secret for us. She sounds like the mom on Home Movies.
Yes.
Home Movies?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
It's the greatest cartoon ever. Ever.
It is.
I don't know that one.
It's been off the air for like 10 years. It's just the greatest show ever.
Yeah.
And,
but so it's before my time.
No. Oh.
Yeah.
It's a classic cartoon.
I'm 28. It's almost before my time, too, so I feel you on that. But anyway, yeah, that's where I was trying to peg her, and I think I got it down pegged.
Mrs. Small.
Uh-huh. Anyway, so tell us about the Skeptical Psychic here. What is the Skeptical Psychic bringing to the table? It's an interesting moniker. I like it. I haven't heard of it, actually.
Thank you. I mean, the whole idea behind it was that, I didn't grow up psychic. I didn't have psychic experiences. We didn't talk about it in my family because I grew up in a very, very academic family. And it didn't exist. So it wasn't until I was actually, middle-aged that I began having my first kind of psychic experiences. But that wasn't, so I ended up writing a book. I thought it was going to be a book about the psychology of intuition. And what I discovered was that psychologists and neuroscientists and all kinds of medical people, they're just not interested in intuition. So I started talking to anybody that I could sort of get my hands on who was into the psychic realm, and talk to them about, what is this stuff, this intuition. And I realized at a certain point that if I was really going to talk about it, I had to understand it from the inside. So I trained with a well-known detective for about 10 years, and I trained with a bunch of other mediums and medical intuitives. And I discovered during that period of time, only after arguing with all of my teachers all the time, that actually I had a certain ability. So that was kind of shocking to me. So, I mean, my whole thing is that I constantly question everything. I'm also an attorney. Did I mention that already?
I did see that, and that's what kind of scared the piss out of me having you on. I was like, I better at least cite a lot of references and everything I put on there. Plenty of links in the blog. Plenty of links.
Everything up. So, like, I don't buy it. No, but the thing is that when if you spend your whole life, you're not psychic, you don't know what it means, you're not interested in it, you're an attorney, you're dealing with evidence and that kind of very empirical type of stuff, and then all of a sudden you get thrown into this other world, you say, no. Either it's because you're guessing, you've had some type of subliminal information, it's wishful thinking, it's probability. I mean, there are any number of reasons that any normal skeptic is going to say, absolutely not, I just don't buy that. But what I realized was at a certain point, there's something to this. There's absolutely something to it, and it's incredibly valuable. But it's not everything, and you have to learn how to separate out, brain chatter from the really valuable stuff. And that's where, if you're not skeptical all the time of your own, whatever you come up with in terms of a reading or a whatever, you're not doing yourself or anybody else any favors.
That's a good point. You brought the brain chatter part of it and teaching you yourself, basically, how to be intuitive, if that's the right word for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know everybody likes to use different words for their gift and all that. So,
I don't care. People don't like the word psychic anymore, but I use it all the time. And in the same way that people get all, delicate about, well, we don't talk about ghosts, we talk about spirits. No, I'll talk about ghosts, I'll talk about psychic, whatever it is what it is what it is. So, whether you're intuitive or sensitive or medium or this or that.
Yeah, it's a good point, too. You brought up about the contradiction with the academic world and people busy being hung up on evidence and facts and things like that. I'm also in law enforcement, so I deal with your kind all the time. I have a huge problem with a lot of academia and their standards in the scientific method trying to be applied to such things like mediumship and paranormal investigations and ufology and things like that. And the root of it is, here are all these people spending their lives looking for the acceptance of a subculture, a section of the scientific community, and you're never going to get it because you're always going to be looked at like you're crazy. So why do we still have this need to ask for their acceptance? And then the flip side to that is, I understand we have to start somewhere,
that was the reason why I wrote my book, which I will shamelessly plug.
Shame away.
It's called Psychic Intuition, Everything You Ever Want to Ask But Were Afraid to Know. And the reason I wrote this book was especially for skeptics. I love skeptics, and I love having conversations about this kind of stuff with skeptics, because it's just always useful. But I wrote it in a way that basically I'm speaking their language. I'm speaking to them in terms of logic and rationality and science so that they can begin to understand, first of all, why they don't have psychic experiences, at least that they can identify. And then also why psychic experiences are not crazy. They're not hallucinations. I really spent a whole lot of time distinguishing between, what's crazy and what's something different. And then explaining the different parts of the brain where I think that it would be most useful at investigating, where I believe that they're going to find answers. So I took a lot of that from neuroscience. So my whole effort has been to explain to people why psychic work or mediumship work it's a real ability. It's a real phenomenon within the human brain. Because I want people to get it. And I think what I've been told so far is it's not only helping skeptics to kind of get it, but it's helping people who have these abilities to, it kind of lays a foundation for them. Because a lot of, I teach this stuff in New York, and I get students who come to me, with all different levels of abilities, but it goes from 0 all the way to, I have people in my classes who have, 40 years of mediumship experience. But everybody at some level who has an ability generally says that they were shunned as a kid because they were told that they were crazy, or people got really frightened of them and shut them down. Or they got frightened of their own abilities. So my book is written in a way so that people can understand this is an absolutely natural, normal, physiological, phenomenon in the human. And so it gives them a basis for explaining it to other people. So that's sort of what I'm all about, is trying to get this into a format that mainstream people can understand.
I noticed that it's been out for a few years, but you recently updated it. I'm wondering what kind of changes did you make to it to make it better than you had before?
Oh, you noticed. Wow. Yeah, that's very good. I actually I cut it in about half, so I got rid of a lot of the anecdotal stuff that I have about my own life, and just I added in a couple things, but mostly I was just cutting because I had to get it to roughly half the size. So it's much tighter now, and I think it's easier, especially people who don't like to really read. It just makes it, and it's still pretty, condensed, and there's a lot of room for really thinking about things.
There you go. And Nicole will be glad to know that it is available on Kindle. So
I do always check that. I don't do the paper books anymore. They have to be on Kindle.
Yeah, I think I agree. I'm starting to run out of space too. But it's available on Nook also.
There you
Sweet.
go. Nice, gotta love it. So there you go, and it's definitely cheaper than buying the actual paperback one. But wait, go to the store and get it. Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and you can wait in the mail. And check it out, and get it. And get on it, and learn for yourself what it's all about, skeptics out there. I know I really piss off a lot of my friends who are kind of programmed in to get the acceptance of the scientific community, but I really don't care because that's my opinion of it, of the scientific community and academia, because I'm just not a glutton for punishment, I guess, anymore. Screw them. They don't want to accept us, then piss off, we'll do our own thing. That's just my opinion of it. Why shove us in this, why shove a round peg in a square hole, all day? It ain't going to happen until it jumps out in their face. And even if some of these people in academia actually have any experience like that, because like you were saying, if you're not open to be receptive to these kind of things, your odds of them happening to you are going to be in the toilet, So realistically, even if they did happen to them, most of them would probably try to explain it away and blow it off. Nicole's already experienced that before, and we've been in the same room when something's, moved in the room, and here she went, just explaining it away, so, you can't really help the completely ingrained
Okay, noise, I'm not even going to get into this, but a slight shuffling noise, it does correlate to a psychic experience in my mind.
Okay. I know it doesn't, and you don't have to explain it to me. I get it, I get that it'll blow your entire, laws of reality apart, or whatever the hell you want to call it, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'll make up my own words for it now. How's that sound?
I think that, I would probably be the same opinion that a shuffling noise wouldn't necessarily do it for me either. But when you begin to experience things like, if you want to talk spirits, okay?
Sure.
You hear footsteps that are, 5 feet away from you. And you can basically describe the height and weight and gender of the person based off the footsteps, and you can count the number of steps that they take, and it correlates with the number of steps on your staircase. You start to think twice, okay? if you can actually, with your physical eyes, see a spirit in a mirror, and they're moving around, and you're with maybe 3 or 4 other eyewitnesses, and you're discussing the spirit and what they're doing in real time, maybe you change your mind, okay?
I would totally 100% agree with you.
Okay.
Totally, I'm on the same page with you. If that were to happen to me, that would change my mind in a big way.
Right. Now here's the catch. In order to get to that point, because it took me decades to get to that point, and I could say, how come I don't get to see a ghost, you know? And what was happening was, and I talk about it has everything to do with the way that we use our sense perception, and I talk about this like, you know, it would take me a while to go through it. But anyway, it took me decades to be able to get to the point of having that degree of clarity. Before then, what I had, for example, was I would have experiences of ghosts where it would be like a little bit of a shuffling sensation or a sensation of heaviness in a room. I couldn't quite explain it, or other things. But with what I'll call my third eye, or what you might call your imagination, I would be able to describe the spirit. And I'd say to myself, well, that's pretty ridiculous because that's out of my own mind. I'm making this stuff up. But then what I would do afterwards is I would go look it up online, and I was getting absolute flat-on verifications. I was sometimes getting verifications that my little crazy imaginations were accurate when I had been told by historians at the time on the locations that no, it didn't happen that way. And then I would check out the books, and I would find out that actually it did. So little bit by little bit, you have to open your mind to experience the possibilities. If you shut down your brain, you probably are not going to get to the point of actually, you know, ghost with your eyes or having that real direct physical sensory experience. It's very much related to how much you decide to accept into your world of possibility.
Now, do you actually go out on any investigations or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. Cool. Do you go group?
Yeah, I'm with a group called New Jersey Ghost Investigations.
Okay, cool. There you go.
I've been part of other teams as well, you know, parts of the country.
There you go. Yeah, we're down here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been to a couple out here. Not too bad. You know, that same house where we saw something move, that time I was with Nicole, it wasn't really that active, but the next time, man, it was crazy in there. It really scared the hell out of me for a second, you know. But, you know, just some loud banging. Guy had his head knocked against the wall. It was crazy. But, yeah, and, you know, and I know what Nicole instantly said, well, he probably did it himself. And I'm like, this guy's like 60-something, and, like, the last person I would think, A, that would try to fake evidence, and B, want to ram the hell out of their head into the wall like that, you know.
Sometimes I don't think they're trying to fake it or get away with anything or manipulate anything. Sometimes I think people want to believe so bad that they manifest their own truths.
Right. And that's the big fear. I always had that fear. And that's what I had to work my way through in order to understand that isn't necessarily what's going on. But that's why I said I'm always skeptical, because I'm always checking. Well, what about this? What about that? You know, could have done this. And you get to a point where you have possibilities, and you start adding up those possibilities, and suddenly you start to realize there's something else. There's another, you know, energetic pattern that's manifesting in our reality.
Now, when you go out on your investigations, everybody bring the normal tools of the trade, so to speak, or do you go out there just yourself in a recorder, you know, in a voice recorder type thing? You know, when
this particular group that I'm with, they have all of their own very high-tech equipment. They like everybody on the team to use their equipment, which is all right. I mean, we do that. I personally like to use my own equipment, and I have it's not super sophisticated, but I have enough of it.
Yeah.
And so I like to use it just because I also feel that there's something about, I think, working with your own equipment and with your own mindset or your own energy that you can pick up on things maybe better than if you're using something that's is a little bit alien to you.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, you're more familiar with your equipment better than anyone else should be, so, who else better to operate it,
But I think it picks up energy better.
Hmm.
There's a guy, he's out in California. His name is William Tiller, and he did some experiments a while back, and he found that in terms of photography, that mediums or psychics who would take photographs of exactly the same thing, and very often it'd be exactly the same equipment, so maybe I'm disproving my own point here, but it was the person themselves, the medium or the psychic, and they would be able to pick up anomalies under identical conditions where the non-psychic person couldn't and didn't.
Nice.
And it's a little bit like real life. I mean, we're all looking at the same reality, but for whatever reason, we are connecting the dots differently.
It's the receptor factor, I think, that you were talking.
Could be. I'm jury's out on that one.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you kind of broke up there for a second.
I said the jury's out on that one because I don't know if that's a receptor factor or whether that's an energetic factor that you are somehow putting into the equipment or the atmosphere or the actual items that you are being able to see. So I don't know, exactly where it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? I mean, how do you even measure that kind of thing, too, Because that, in my opinion, is the point when scientific investigation fails. Oh, unit to measure that kind of thing,
Well, I think it's less of a problem figuring out a unit to measure that as much as it is trying to get a spirit to show up on time.
Yes. That, too, is difficult, and that's what kills a lot of it there is the repeatability factor for everything, especially like EVPs and stuff. Usually when we go out there, when I join the investigation and stuff, I just bring the digital voice recorder. I let thermometers and EMF meters and all that other kind of stuff just, let someone else handle all that. I'll help you take the readings and everything, but, that's fine. I don't care if somebody brings it or not. I'm there for an experience to see what's going on there firsthand. I try to keep to where, you're your best equipment, I think, out there. And that's for people that are either intuitive or not, Just use your own senses in these kind of situations and try not to let the dynamic of the group take over on that kind of stuff. Like Nicole was saying that, you're going to be with people that are, for lack of a better word, desperate for some sort of interaction,
Yeah, well, that's why people bring equipment, so that you have something that's, verifiable, that you're not having some incredible fantasy all by yourself.
Yeah.
But even, you talk about using the different, temperature thing, gauges, or some of the EMF monitors, that kind of thing. You can use those in a way that'll help you prove an interaction. You can use them as dowsing equipment.
Yes, there you go. You do dowsing rods, too, when you're out there?
I have them, and I can sort of fiddle with them. I don't think I'm particularly good at them. I know people who are really good at them. But I've used, for example, the temperature gauge. I've done work with that where we were able to, just through a series of questions, in sort of same type of format that you do an EVP, but you do them with your thermostat as a and you say, well, if the answer is yes, bring down the temperature by a half a degree or a full degree. We were able to, through a conversation once, bring down the temperature 11 degrees in the space of, I don't know, a couple of minutes.
Now that's tough to do. I mean, that's something that's really incredible, actually, because you'll get
for all you got to do is suggest to yourself that actually that's within the realm of possibility. It's not impossible. And then you suggest to the spirit that you're dealing with, or who you're imagining might be out there, that they can use that as a way to communicate. And I think once you set up these possibilities, it's not that difficult.
Nice. There you go. See, that's a great interactive tool right there to make those kind of things happen and actually use the instrumentation that you already have brought with you. There's a lot of unorthodox stuff out there to test the abilities of a spirit or a ghost. One of them in the room here, Cop, a listener of ours, was talking about bringing a compass and seeing if you can get the spirit to spin the needle around. Have you ever heard of anyone doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, I've heard of people doing that. I haven't done that myself, but I've definitely heard of that. Yeah.
And have you ever heard of a guy, UFOnut.com, Chuck Zukowski, does a lot of cattle mutilation stuff, Bigfoot hunts, ghost hunting. He kind of dabbles in a little bit of all of it. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't heard of him.
Great guy if you can grab him on for a guest, but yeah, Chuck Zukowski, really good. He's got a sister too with MUFON out in I think it's Colorado, Debbie Ziegelmeyer. But anyway, Chuck came on and really brought up a great point about the next kind of level of determining the intelligence of spirits and stuff like that, and really finding out what they can and can't do. And basically it's just bringing like a child's toy, an infant toy with colors and shapes and something that makes noises or lights up, so you could be like, hit the blue button. Okay, you could start something simple like that, right?
Right.
And you can go with, hit the star or the square and things like that. So then you can start figuring out if, A, they see in any kind of visual spectrum, in the same one as ours, so they can determine color. And then you can see if they could see anything shape-wise at all, So it really was something ridiculously different that I'd never heard of before. And I'm sure, a lot of groups that watch a lot of shows on TV would probably laugh at. But if you want to get some real answers and determine intelligence levels and capabilities, there's something to try. And I'd never thought of that or heard of any other investigative groups even attempting something like that. And I brought it up to the group we have here with Carolina Hauntings, Apparitions, Poltergeist Society that we go out with, and they have a meetup here every month that we go to. And they said, sure, bring it out there. And that's something else that's important is, if you're out there with a group of people doing these investigations, hopefully they're open enough to these kind of things, and not going to be like, no, we can't have that here, and muddy up our investigative techniques that we've already have, you know what I mean? That'll really get your gauge there and see how receptive people are to new ideas and stuff like that. So, that was great. He was a great guest. Good guy to have on, too. Really cool. Actually did a lot of, talking after a show, too, with him. It was awesome.
It's a good idea. I mean, I sort of do that a little bit with the, the K2 meters. I'll ask a spirit, can you make it go from, green to yellow or from yellow to orange, or can you make it go all the way to red or whatever? I mean, it's a similar type of a thing, although I think with the, when you're doing it that way, it sort of depends on the spirit's ability to, jump that much energy, because it's all EMF related, the color is, to get it either that much higher. You know what I mean? Whereas if you have a piece of equipment like what you're describing, this guy, Chuck, I think, was talking about, which is, if you have all colors and you can... the spirit, no matter, which one, like go for the green and not the yellow, but it takes an equal amount of energy to get either one of them to go, then you can start to prove the intelligence of the spirit. But you could do the same thing by asking them to turn on the flashlight on the right-hand side of the room and now turn on the one on the left-hand side of the room. You could, same concept.
That's great that you mentioned that, the flashlight thing, too, because we actually had one in the same house that we'd been to a bunch of times that me and Nicole had that experience in, and the head knocking and everything, same night of that. Had flashlight on in a bathroom a room that was converted to a bathroom that used to be a maid quarter, and then over 100-year-old kind of house here in North Carolina. So, my question is that when we were in the room, the flashlight that I had out was one that you hit once to turn on, hit twice, and it goes to a flash. It goes to like. Right. It lights up the base, and then you hit it 3 times, and then the base blinks. So it's like a triple cycling type of flashlight. It's not a simple on and off one, right? And nothing's loose in it, nothing crazy like that. We weren't even trying to do a flashlight experiment or anything like that. But what I'm trying to get to is that I remember being in the room, sitting there, and thinking, man, this light's really annoying in my face. And lo and behold, it goes out,
Oh.
And I was like, whoa. So, do you ever feel like that they kind of like read your mind or empathic and can pick up on things in rooms and make them happen without you actually overtly asking?
Well, yeah. I mean... Of course.
Because after it happened, and we get out of the room, and we're going through it, I was like, okay, listen, was anybody else thinking about how annoying that light was in your face? And there was another woman in there that said the same thing, and another lady was like, yeah, and I found the cricket outside annoying too, but and it ended up stopping. And then the light goes out. And I was like, wow, this is, okay, well, that's cool, And this bathroom evidently was one where when the guy would take a shower, he had felt him getting slapped on the butt in there. So it was, it was interesting. So, yeah, that was a really cool one. And hey, where do you stand on, like, I know photography, we mentioned a little while ago about taking pictures of the same place at the same time, location, things like that with individuals that were empathic versus non. Where do you stand with orbs and things like that? Because I know they get a lot of criticism, and I know I was one that I'm the one that whenever you see it online, it's like, picture online, you don't know what the hell this person's done to it, you don't know what the hell the conditions are, and away you go, right? But go ahead, I'll stop there and pick up here in a few.
No, I actually, on my website, which is the skepticalpsychic.com, I've got a page of ghost photography, and yeah, I got plenty of orbs up there, but I do talk about how I show pictures of orbs from raindrops, orbs from insects.
Okay.
I know that you got to be careful of that, but I actually just put up a couple of days ago some photographs. I had gone up to this, it's an inn up in the Boston area that was built in 1707. It's Longfellow's Inn. It's got 2 rooms that are over the old part of the tavern, and they're supposed to be haunted by this woman named Jerusha, who she fell in love with some guy, and they were going to get married, and he said he had to go to England, but he'd be back for her, and of course he never came back, and she died of a broken heart. And so she's been said, they've seen full-body apparitions. She sits on the bed occasionally, especially if it's a guy who's sleeping there. People hear piano music. They sometimes smell perfume, stuff like that. I've now stayed in both rooms. First time I stayed in the less haunted room and took a photo of a little itty-bitty orb that was right about at my daughter's head level. And, it's inside. There was no reflecting light. But I have the same tendency of like, well, I don't know. but then we stayed in the other room with a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first photograph I took, I decided to snap it of the side of the room. There were 2 armchairs with a little table. It had a light on the table, a lamp. And clear as a bell, there is a very large, very bright orb, about the size of a head, that's exactly where you would expect to find the head if you were sitting in that chair.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, oh, that's great, she's here. And I start snapping more photos. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, once you do that, you take your control photos and you start to realize, no, it can't be the reflections of the light, it can't be dust, all the normal things you expect to find in a room. And what was interesting was, when we came back up later, I sort of did like a little sneak photo in the room, when nobody was expecting it, least of all the spirits. And I snapped the photo, and there are very bright orbs all over the room. I then snapped it 1 second later, same position, and there's nothing.
Nothing, yep.
So when you do stuff like that, and that's the skeptical part of me, because otherwise, why should I believe it,
Mm-hmm.
Or why should anybody believe me?
Yeah.
Then I start to feel, I think there's some correlations here. And there were some other weird things that happened. I mean, the dead of night, 2:30 in the morning, I was not sleeping well. And I was sort of in and out of sleep. I finally got to sleep, and I get awoken by this unbelievably horrible, high-pitched frequency, really loud, and it won't go away. And I say to myself, what the heck is that? I jumped out of bed. I thought it was my friend's computer alarm or something. I just didn't know what it was. And I'm running around holding my hands over my ears because it's killing me. It really hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, my God, I'm not going to be able to sleep the rest of the night.
Yeah.
And even if I slept on the other side of the bed, it was still really loud over there. I finally located the origin. It was next to the side of my bed. And as I'm lying there thinking, oh, no, I'm not going to sleep at all, I hear a bunch of footsteps in the tavern part of this building, and they're coming closer to the room. And now I'm thinking, uh-oh, and of course my friend is sound asleep.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready to yell pretty much. And the footsteps then go down the staircase and end. And the pitch sound is completely gone. I told the manager the next day. He had no idea what I was talking about. I don't know what it was. But, if you start adding together little weird pieces of a story together, a lot of times they start to make sense. And to me, that made sense that, here's the other weird thing. My friend had said to me right before we went to bed, I don't know what she was talking about. I wasn't paying attention to her. And she said, do you ever get that feeling like, blood you can hear the blood like rushing in your ears? You ever find that annoying? And I was reading and I wasn't paying attention to it, and I said, I get annoyed by high-pitched frequency in my ear. And that was the last thing that we said before we went to bed. And I've never heard of a high-frequency pitch like that, ever, except for maybe on like as I said, like a computer alarm or something.
You get a lot of auditory experiences when you're out there investigating? Or is it kind of 50-50 with, visual?
It's interesting. That's been a whole part of my journey in doing this kind of work. I really started out very visual. I tend to be more of like clairvoyant. I do get a lot of auditory, and it helps me when I'm trying to pick up like names of people, especially if I'm working on a psychic detective case and I'm trying to pick up names of suspects or witnesses. So I do get that. And then what I started to develop, I just thought it was the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, I have smelled ghosts, and I've been in situations where, there were 6 of us smelling a ghost together. That's really weird.
Wow.
that was actually it was a murder case that we worked on. And then, I always wondered, well, if you were going to be touched by a ghost, what would it feel like? And I couldn't really imagine. I thought people were just, I thought they were being a little bit too, like wishful thinking. When there was, I felt a little something on my cheek or whatever. And I went to, I did an investigation. It was down in Florida. I forget what, it might have been Orlando. I forget where. But it was in an old courthouse that had been turned into a museum. And we go into what used to be the old jury room, where they'd keep the jury before they bring them into the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had our little K2 meters, and we're wandering around. And my husband was in there, and his K2 was, and mine was doing nothing. It was nothing at all. I go over to it was like a doorway off of this little jury room, and my K2, I'm waving it around, there's nothing. Finally, I turn around, and everybody hears me start to say, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" And the reason why I was yelling was because all of a sudden I felt as though I were being lifted up by somebody or something by the scruff of my neck. And I felt like I was being virtually lifted up off the floor. And I got incredible dizziness that I would say, it's not just like little dizzy, little head spin. This was vertigo.
Yeah.
And everything started spinning, and by the way, I don't have any medical conditions that would cause that. Never had that before. And when I felt like I could get away and my feet were sort of back on the ground, I went running to the other side of the room. The entire room, the atmosphere, it was extremely dense. It was very, very difficult to breathe. What I learned afterwards was they'd had a bunch of mediums come through there, and they had been able to verify that there was actually a ghost of a security guard in that jury room, and the doorway that I had been fitted with my K2 in front of it was the doorway to the old judge's chambers. And apparently this security guard was making sure that no jurors ever got in to see the judge, and he was known to be extremely hostile.
Mm.
So that was my first experience with like physical feeling on the body. So now I do have very physical experiences also.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of sometimes, especially on TV, when you have a lot of the individuals that it seems like they have a lot of things tugging on them or feeling of spider webs and all that. You hear a lot of that being described like that. A lot of the physical interaction being described like that. And are there any shows that you watch on TV or anything like that, or do you try to steer clear of all that?
I've been watching them for years.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. The stuff with the little spider web feeling on the face, or the tugging of the hair. Listen, maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe that's really real. I don't know, but it could just as easily be somebody's imagination, so I don't trust it.
Yeah, exactly. And, camera's rolling, and you got to have something on TV, you got to produce results, and that's the problem with a lot of those shows,
I agree.
A lot of them are like that. And we used to have we did have one on. She came out with a new book here recently. Dean is buddies with a lot of, ghost hunters and all those kind of folks. And I just, there's a fundamental problem I have when you start having these conferences and making people pay to be a part of your special little club of people that you like, your quote-unquote family, but yet you make them pay dues, kind of thing. And in the end, they really just use these people and roll into their house and or their backyard and do what they want to do, and then roll out and hi-bye and see you later, and all in the name of getting a couple of seconds worth of fame and all that good stuff. And I'd rather go about it exposing those kind of frauds and telling people what's right and what's wrong with a lot of those things. And I wasn't immune to those kind of mistakes myself, especially when it came time for when I first started doing investigating, because I'd be watching these shows, and I'll never forget the first thing I told George Mathis here with Inspire. I was like, hey, George, what do you think about people that do investigations barefoot so they don't make any noise while you're doing EVP sessions? And he's like, well, why the hell are you walking around anyway? You know? I was like, good point. I was like, I never thought of that. And he's like, yeah, what are you doing? He's like, you're just gonna yuck up the sound quality. He's like, sit down, do your EVP, and then get up and go. He's like, and from there on out, every time I see the shows doing the EVP sessions, and they're, everybody's got the big ruffly coat, and we're yelling and provoking and asking questions and not waiting for a response, and just keep on moving, and make sure that night vision camera's going, for God's sakes, and get a few shots with the FLIR camera, razzle dazzle us a little bit at least, while we're here, so I'll never forget that as my first question to him when I kind of gave it to him. He's like, well, why the hell would you do that? I was like, it sounded like a good idea when I didn't have a clue, So, yeah, that was kind of funny. It's a nice little learning whole investigative process of it, because you actually see what the reality of investigations versus the TV ones, and
well, yeah, the reality is they're really boring.
Yeah, really boring. A lot of audio tape of nothing.
Nothing, and who's going to watch that? I mean, really?
Yeah, and a lot of tagging noises, and stuff like stomach growlings, creaking floorboards right under your butt because you're shifting,
One of the most annoying things, I think, is when they make the big, like, crashy, bangy, ta-da type of, noises when something has just happened, and you feel like, shut up, I want to hear what just happened.
Yeah.
But just overlaid it with all this, Hollywood audio, to make it sound really exciting. That I hate. But yeah, I mean, you have the same problem with, the Hollywood versions of psychics and mediums and psychic detectives. That was the same problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a grain of truth in everything, okay? That's why it works, because that's what people are really interested in. But when it gets around to making the actual production and keeping these people in business, they have to do a show, and then it turns into something else.
Yeah, I kind of gave up on watching all of them, I definitely don't do any of those shows anymore, and that's fine, because there's no, I mean, you've seen it all before, basically, besides I'm more interested in, like, UFO ends of things, but I'm a big fan of, like, intuition and mediums and
I have
stuff like that.
a story for you. There's another interesting thing. I spend my whole life, I don't believe in UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in ETs, I don't believe in UFOs. Very nice that people say we see them, but frankly, unless I see one, I just can't go there. I got nothing else that's really going to make me believe. So I was walking out of a movie theater with my daughter. It was a year and a half ago in June, and a local movie theater. We walk out at 11:45 at night. It's a very, very dark night. With sort of like high cloud cover, and there's nobody in the parking lot. It's like this big, huge mall. Nobody's there. We're virtually, the only car parked in there. I start to get the keys to go in the car, and my daughter said, "Oh my God, look up, look up." We look up, and about a half a mile away, about 500 to 1,000 feet up in the air, we see this mass of orange and yellow lights. And of course, being the skeptic, I'm running through my head, okay, so are they bouncing off, are they reflecting off the clouds? Or somebody shooting them from the ground in spotlights? And they're nowhere near buildings. And I couldn't take my eyes off of it because it was too weird. Eventually, while I'm looking at it, I can make out the shape. It's a huge boomerang-shaped craft. There had to be, I don't know, I'm going to guess somewhere around maybe 20 of these lights all over it, maybe more, less, I don't know. And it's sitting there, hovering. There's no noise, and it's the size of a football field. This thing was the most massive thing I've ever seen in my life, and it was just sitting there in the sky. And eventually, I didn't want to take my eyes off, so I didn't, not even for a split second, because I didn't know what it was going to do. So I didn't reach for my cell phone to take a photo, nothing. I'm just staring at it. My daughter was really, really frightened. She said, let's go. And I said, no, I want to watch. Eventually, and this is maybe happening over the course of, I'm guessing, which felt like a really long time, on one of the tips of one of these boomerang ends of this orb telescopes open. And I'm guessing it was about 15 feet in diameter. It had a type of a glowing, luminescent type of a white light. I've never seen any light like that in my life. And this thing was huge. It's sitting there for a while. And then it almost like it detaches from the craft and starts doing this very kind of loop-de-loop movement all around the front of the craft, like it's searching for something. It was clearly intelligent or intelligently guided. And then it goes sort of to the other side of the craft. It goes behind the craft, disappears for a couple seconds, comes over, and then goes back to where it started from. And we're sitting there saying, oh my God, what the heck are we looking at? And then the entire craft disappeared in 3 phases. It dematerialized. It did not, I know all about optical illusions. I've lived near some of the biggest airports in the world. Nothing, it did not go away, in terms of distance. It dematerialized, or it had some type of a shield that, blocked all vision. But the tips of this boomerang disappeared, then the center of those sort of wings, and then like you were just flipping your TV set off with a remote. The whole thing just blinked, and it was gone.
Wow. Yeah, see, I tend to believe or think that a lot of the triangle-shaped craft are, but when you're talking about something that's football field wide, I'm starting to have serious doubts, of something that large being able to be in the air, that we can make.
Exactly.
And,
I thought no one would ever believe something as crazy. These 2 facts, I thought if I told anybody it was boomerang shaped, they would laugh at me. Or if I told them it was the size of a football field. Actually, originally I described it as the size of a baseball field with all the outfields. I'm assuming that's roughly the same size.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good description right there, actually.
And I thought people would laugh at me. But then I thought, well, let me just look this up online, see if anybody has ever talked about anything like this. Sure enough, somebody has actually made a very good, it looked like a pencil type of like an artist rendering of exactly what I saw. Like that big and that shape. And apparently that shape is a fairly classic shape, and people have described these things from time to time as being the size of a football field.
That's awesome, and we are up on and I knew it would. ThingsAboutYourStudio.com, and you can hear her Friday nights, and we will be back in 10 minutes here, so everybody go take that break you've been wanting.
Everything must change.
Don't put that probe there. Don't put that probe there. Don't put the... Ooh. Listen to the Church of Mabus radio show at 11 p.m. Eastern, Saturday nights with host Jeffrey Pritchett, bringing you the high strange. Visit www.churchofmabusradio.com. That's www.churchofmabusradio.com.
Tune in to The Mind Cemetery with your hosts, Chip and Nicole, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. We delve into UFOs, abductions, ghosts, aliens, conspiracies, and cryptozoology.
And how could you ever forget about those creepy topics you won't hear on your local news?
This is where I would insert my obligatory skeptical statement. The Mind Cemetery, where the paranoia about the
acclaimed Mind Cemetery blog.
It's not critically acclaimed, but you should check it out anyway. mindcemetery.com.
Hi, everybody. This is Eric. I hope to see you on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific on the Galactic Connection, keeping you connected 1 hour at a time. For more information, please visit thegalacticconnection.com.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome back to hour number 2, The Mind Cemetery, with your hosts, Chip and Nicole. The phone lines are open, and the number is 504-273-7379. You can join the discussion in UFO Paranormal Radio Network's Pal Talk chat room with our guests, the hosts, or give any feedback you'd like. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Visit our website, mindcemetery.com, for upcoming show news and blogs. Two 737 79. You can join the discussion. Welcome back. Back to hour number 2, The Mind Cemetery, with your 7th Paranormal Radio Network's Pal Talk chat room. With our guests, the hosts, or give
This.
No, nobody does.
So you're going to have a baby in 2 months?
Yeah, my due date is sometime in January. They kind of keep moving it around, but it's probably going to be early to mid.
They keep moving it around because it's not my baby, for God's sakes.
Oh, yeah, my husband tried to pull the same thing.
See? Well, it's wishful thinking.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, keep it up.
All right, well, I guess we're back, and we left off from technical difficulties beyond our control. The few alligators in the bayou were doing some work on some wires, and you know how that worked out for us. So we were talking about the baseball field size boomerang UFO that Nancy saw in the air, and how it is familiar with, and how the white light that she saw was familiar with the white light I saw during some of my experiences, and I hesitate to call it, you know, abduction or contact or anything like that, because I've never seen a little green man, for lack of a better word.
I hesitate to call what you describe an experience, let alone anything.
I know. God flippin' forbid, right?
Oh.
You saw a light in the window.
Yeah.
I've seen that same window. The cars reflect on that.
Not the one that faces the road.
No, the other one. I know which one. It reflects off your neighbor's house, and the light shines in the window.
Yeah, swamp gas, too, right? Swamp gas.
Swamp gas.
And a lighthouse, is what you're going to tell me.
Yeah, that's exactly
The lighthouse, right?
I mean, we've had countless experts on who will say that what you're describing sounds exactly like sleep paralysis.
Yeah, and I don't dispute it. And I also don't leave it out of the realm of possibility that any alien entity would be able to use that same sort of experience that we all commonly call sleep paralysis to mask what they're doing, you know, to fool us. Gee, big surprise. They managed to cross the galaxy, mind at the same time. Not exactly crazy, you know? I mean, come on. So, anyway, this bright light that you described sounds a lot like the one I saw outside, a very clean, crisp, sort of like a fluorescent light, but it was very bold and controlled like. I don't know if yours was or could be described like that, but mine was in between a couple houses that maybe there was, 15 feet in between us, maybe 20, something like that, tops, and just slowly went up, and then when it got up about tree height, you know, roof height, and it was a ranch, you know, gone, and that's it. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, well, that was pretty bright. I'm sure somebody else saw it in the neighborhood, and then I proceeded to go back to sleep instantly. And that's my problem with a whole lot of this thing, is that it'd be the same things. I'm, like she said, I'm paralyzed, arms to the side, straight-legged and everything, you know, and I keep seeing the light, and that's it. And as soon as the light's gone, it's like, oh, no big deal. You were just absolutely terrified beyond all comprehension for about 10, 15 seconds, and now you're just going to go to sleep like nothing happened. See, that's another part of it that really makes it messed up. It's like, how can I go from sheer terror to, screw it, I'll go to bed. I just don't get it, you know?
Well, let me ask you this. Can you describe the light? You say it was like fluorescent, but what do you mean by that?
It was like it was really bright and clear and white as white can be, but it was like a soft and not a harsh, bright white light. You know, it wasn't like the old-style light bulbs and headlights of the mid-'90s, you know, direction like a beam would of light, you know, that we would expect. It seemed like it was, like I was saying, controlled in a ball type, but it wasn't. It itself was bright and clear and crisp and light on everything around it. And it wasn't like casting huge shadows. And therein lies why most of the neighborhood probably never saw this thing, you know.
Let me tell you something, because maybe this giant white orb that I saw, the way that I've always described it to people is it was a light that I've never seen before. It was luminescent. It was completely uniform in the light energy that it emitted. Mm-hmm. It was, by comparison, you know, all stars or airplane lights or car headlights, anything like that, they have these like rays that come off of the light. This particular type of light that I saw had no rays. It was just very gentle, very soft, but uniformly the same amount of light and incredibly clearly defined on its contours. And it it was right next to all of these other orange and yellow lights, and those lights were completely different. They had, sort of beams or rays coming off of them. The quality was different. Not at all like this particular light. And I agree with you. I don't think this thing, maybe I can't say this because it was up in the air, but my impression was it was not, as it moved around this craft, it wasn't creating light on the, like you would imagine the light would do on that side of the craft. So I understand what you're talking about 100%.
Yeah, it's exactly the same kind of thing, and I was mentioning too about how you were able to control your emotional state at the time, where I was, like I said, for lack of a better term, sheer terror, and the only time I've ever been able to match that level of fear and terror was the time during the paranormal investigation when George hit his head against the door jamb, and that only lasted like a second because it startled me, and it was like, I instantly thought, okay, well, that's that level right there, and the worst part about it, though, was it was just sustained for so long, and I've told Vuz it and says, no, it didn't happen, it's sleep paralysis. I want to be told that it wasn't an alien abduction or anything like that, or a visitation or whatever. Okay, I don't want to know that they're able to do that.
No, you don't. Don't say stuff you don't mean.
Oh, listen, here's another strange thing. Once you open up into this world of, like, crazy, there's kind of, like, no going back, and things start to come to you. And I mean not just perceptions, the way that you see things, but your experiences of things. Like, as I said, I never saw a UFO. All of a sudden, boom. There's now I have to say to myself, okay, well, maybe, I guess, UFOs must be kind of out there. And then I started asking questions, if they're UFOs, what's all this business about, ETs and abductions and all that kind of stuff? And so, I've talked to a lot of people about that. I certainly understand. I've read a ton about it. Don't particularly, my sense was, well, I haven't bumped into an ET, at least that I know of. Mm-hmm. So, what am I supposed to really strong case for me? Believe it. Well, sure enough, I start getting contacted by people who claim to have been abducted. And they start sending me evidence. And that's when at that point, you've got to start saying, oh, okay. It's not just somebody's imagination, let's say, that they think that maybe they're quasi-dreaming a ball of light. Hello?
Yes.
What was that?
Oh, I rubbed the mic, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Just slightly.
Ow. Okay. I totally lost my track on that. But anyway, when you start seeing, photos of things, and you start understanding the terror that comes to, like, guys that are, like, Marines, big, strong, powerful, like, have seen it all kind of guys, and they're terrified out of their minds, then you've got to start asking a whole other different set of questions.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot to go along with the abduction thing about it being in, family bloodlines and such like that, and that kind of stuff. And Joe's real good with that with ICAR and doing abduction research and blood type studies even, and eye colors and things like that. And it's really great stuff that, not a lot of other abduction research individuals have even gotten into, and it's
Let me story. You want to hear another story? You got time for a story?
Yeah, all day.
All right. So this time, I'm driving out to Pittsburgh, and I'm taking my daughter out there. At the time, she was looking at colleges out there. And I got my son also, who's younger, driving in the car. And from where we are, it's about, depends how you drive, maybe a 7-hour drive, or 8 hours if you stop. So it's a long, long drive. And you get towards the outside of Pittsburgh on the highway, and it gets very hilly, and sort of dark, short hills. And you drive through that. It seems like forever. So I'm driving through there, and I'm thinking, I'm daydreaming as I'm driving because I'm really bored. Thinking this would be a great place if there are UFOs out there. Why don't you make yourself known? Why not? Here's a perfect place. There's nobody around, and you could just show yourself, and I'll get a chance to be entertained while I'm driving on this very boring drive. I don't say this out loud. I never talk about UFOs with my kids. I don't talk about ghosts with my kids. I don't, certainly not then. I didn't talk about any of this stuff. Anyway, so no UFOs show up. We get to Pittsburgh. We get to the hotel room. I put my 2 kids. Are you there?
Yep.
Did you just do something all over the microphone, I guess?
No, Nicole just dropped.
Oh, okay. On the ground?
No, I'm not that lucky.
Okay. So the 2 kids are in the other bed. I tell them, I put on a movie for them, and I say, look, I'm going to bed. I'm just dog tired. I go to sleep. Now, my daughter has always been, she's a very restless sleeper, and she'll sort of talk a little bit, but it's more like sounds, like, and they don't really make sense.
Yeah.
But she's loud, and I'm a very light sleeper, so it's annoying if you're a light sleeper.
Mm-hmm.
I put the 2 of them together. But anyway, middle of the night, I'm dead asleep, and I hear her starting to talk, and I think, I was going to go over and wake her up and tell her to cut it out, and then I thought, well, maybe let me see if she's got anything interesting to say. So before I know it, she sits bolt upright in her bed, and she says, forget about the grace. I don't know what you humans mean by grace anyway. And then she falls right back into her bed, sound asleep, and is no more talking. It's the first time ever she's ever said anything.
Yeah.
In a full sentence or with real words even. And I knew immediately that phrase, what she had said, was meant for my ears. And so I am freaked out. My eyes are wide open. I jump up. I get a notebook. I write down exactly what she said. And then, of course, I can't fall back to sleep. It takes me a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so next day, now, let me back it up. What she did not know, and I had not told either one of my kids, was that the previous day I had spent most of the day talking to a well-known demonologist because I had interviewed the top exorcist for the Vatican a while back, and I had learned that he uses psychics.
Mm-hmm.
He uses a special kind of psychic called charismatic, and they operate with charisms. I said, what the heck is a charism? So this demonologist is sending me all this Vatican literature to explain what a charism is. I had spent the previous day studying all of this literature. It said a charism means a grace from God, which is, the healing arts or prophets or any of those things. I said, oh, a grace. Now think about what my daughter said in the middle of her sleep. Forget about the grace. I don't know what you humans mean by grace anyway. Now, who's talking? So that flipped me out. Now, so the next day I get up and I say to my daughter, what do you, the word grace, what does that mean to you? Oh, turkey, Thanksgiving, ballerinas, whatever. But obviously she didn't know the meaning of grace in any religious sense. And I said, did you have any unusual dreams last night? And she said, well, come to think of it, yes, I did. I dreamt that I was taken away on this UFO spaceship showed up. And they told me I had to go with them, so I did. And we went off into some other galaxy, and I forget what I was doing there. And then they said, well, we have to return you now. And I didn't want to come back. And I said, do you mind describing what the UFO looked like? She described it, and I said, wow, I dreamt about a UFO last night, too, and that's exactly what it looked like.
So do you think they were actually like angels?
I have no idea. Now, somebody suggested to me maybe what she was saying was not the word grace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was thinking of it in terms of, the demonologist's terms or the Vatican's terms of grace. Maybe it's the grays.
What do you think about the fundamental Christian view of aliens? Because they pretty much just consider them, and most ghost spirits, just straight up demons. I tend to think they overly simplify a lot of paranormal activity for whatever reasons of their own.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that I've learned in doing all of this kind of work that I do, which is that I didn't really used to believe in good and evil in the universe. I thought that was, oh, come on, grow up, that's a human concept, get over it. I now believe, yes, there are clearly good and evil forces, if you want to call them that, positive and negative forces. And I now have a much, much stronger belief in God than I ever did after doing this kind of work. And in terms of, there are people who would, I think, they're operating out of a very simplistic kind of fear, which is, if you're talking about a ghost or a spirit, something, it has to be something demonic or evil or of the devil. And I don't believe that. I just don't. I've had too many experiences which would indicate to me otherwise. Now, you can always argue, okay, well, that's like the trickster. Okay, maybe, but I don't think so. And in life, there is nothing that is 100% clear. You have to make your best guess, always. And my best guess is that, yes, there are some very, very evil types of energies out there. I don't think that I have, fortunately, encountered them personally. I think I have encountered only relatively positive energies. I may have once encountered something evil. And there's a big difference. You can feel it. It's different. And I don't think that a lot of people are able to make those distinctions yet because I don't really know what they're talking about.
True, and I think that if something is really evil, they're not going to let you know until it's too late. It's going to be a big deception for them. That's going to be the name of their game, is to fool you into confiding in them until it's too late, so to speak.
Well, maybe, but, you went... Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just fell a little bit.
It's throwing me off of this conversation, too.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can tell you on my show every once in a while when there's a strategic question about spirit that gets asked, suddenly Skype doesn't work, like on cue. So I pay attention to all of these things.
Oh, I have a tendency to believe that more so technology failing in those aspects when it comes to like conversations of good and evil and demonic forces and things like that. What I can't stand is when I listen to shows and it'll be some like ufologist or like disclosure person and their phone just disconnects or whatever. Like, when we were having Skype problems, it always turns into like some grand effort by the government to silence them, Yeah. I'm like, really? We don't have to. You're not that important, and I'm pretty sure they would have wiped you out already if you were really that smart, and really letting some things out there they didn't want you to know. But I think the truth is that they love it. They love the muddy waters, and anyone that wants to jump in the water and mix it up is fine with them, in their opinion.
I think. It's this really interesting balance in this kind of crazy world. it's a balance between keeping your eyes wide open at all times and never discounting anything, but never jumping to an automatic conclusion, ever. And that's really hard to do. Most people can't do that.
That's true. And I think that's a good place to ask you about like how you manage to train yourself to be psychically in tune, intuitive, and to be a medium, and also kind of work in with some remote viewing conversation, because I want to hit that before we go, because I really love that, and there's plenty of other stuff we should have talked about, but what I've gotten out of the remote viewing and the psychic aspect, like you were saying, you mentioned brain chatter.
Yeah.
And the way I understood it from like Ed Dames and those guys, Ingo Swann, a lot of them, when it came to the remote viewing aspect of it, it was turning off your ego, turning off the interpretation of the data. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I tell all my students this. I mean, if you want to get involved in doing any type of, if you want to develop your own psychic ability, which almost necessarily is going to involve something that people now call remote viewing, although remote viewing, I mean, you're talking about the government guys, and they had all kinds of protocols, connected with that. It's just a form of clairvoyance under controlled, in a controlled environment. But if you're going to do any of that kind of work, you have to, as I tell everybody, stop thinking and stop feeling. And the only thing you can permit yourself to do is to start sensing. And that sounds really, really easy, and I have spent years and years trying to do it well. And when I mean stop thinking, it means you have to, as tempting as it might be to try and guess about something, shut that down. You cannot guess. You cannot think. You cannot make your little logical conclusions. That is what destroys psychic ability. The other thing you have to stop doing is stop feeling, and I mean emotional feeling. Because the minute that I can't give a reading to somebody who is close to me or that I care about, because I'll just wish the best for them, and I only want the best for them, and I will refuse to permit the possibility of something bad, and that'll screw up a psychic reading. Mm-hmm. The only thing you can do is sense, and by that I mean you have to allow the brain to deliver the information in any one of the 5 sensory formats, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairolfaction, clairgustation, clairsentience. And the brain will give its information in that way, and it's kind of a coded way of getting information. A lot of times it may not be literal like our regular 5 senses are. It may come in sort of metaphorically or symbolically, and that, only at that point, after you've gotten that information, can you sit there and start to let your brain start to work again and to start to think about it and interpret what it means.
Do you do any kind of meditation?
No, I hate meditation.
Okay.
I really do. I mean, I get really bored. I cannot sit there and stare at my navel. I just can't do it. I won't. But I do tell people I think that most of my life is a meditation.
It ends up putting me asleep.
Yeah, and obviously you can't allow you've got to be rested, but not that. What's that little place right in between? Mm-hmm. But I like doing other things. I mean, I would say I meditate while I'm driving, maybe. I meditate while I'm taking a walk, while I'm, any number of things, but not when I'm not one of those people who sits down and says, okay, now I'm going to meditate.
Okay. All right. And what really... I'm trying to think about what would... What have even got you into wanting to try this kind of thing out, from being someone that never ever considered themselves psychic and not having any kind of experiences, and to where we are today? You know, it's a heck of an evolution for you as an individual, it seems like, more than anything.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's been a huge evolution. I had one major experience when I was, practicing as law in New York, and it was a full-blown mediumship experience that came at me out of nowhere. And I was highly accurate. I was correct. I sensed a spirit. I delivered a message on behalf of a spirit, identified that spirit, and freaked out the person who I was giving the message to. But I think I freaked out even worse because I didn't know why this was happening or why I was doing it. And I don't enjoy making a fool out of myself, and I thought I was definitely making a fool out of myself. So I had that experience, but then I didn't know what to do with it. So I kind of chucked it. It was nowhere really in my mind. But at least I had that experience, so I could, it's a little bit of a resource that you can kind of go back on and say, okay, when I'm learning about psychic stuff, psychic ability, or when I'm learning about mediumship, I can sort of go back to that strange experience I had and say, okay, I understand that. For example, when I had that experience, was able to give the initials and the first name of this spirit. So that was an auditory experience, because I heard Mary Maria Marie, last name starting with the letter S. So I heard it. And the first time I ever saw, John Edward, it was before he got famous, and he was giving a seminar out in Long Island. I think he'd just written his first book. And he explained how he heard names, and he explained it exactly the same way that I had experienced it in my own mind. So I was able to say to myself, okay, yeah, I think this guy is for real. And I was the only person in the audience who asked him to sign his book because I thought he was going to be famous someday.
Nice. There you go. Getting in on the ground floor, right?
It makes sense.
Do you, when you were developing this kind of thing, did you ever bring it up to any coworkers or anything like that? What you would do or what you were doing?
No.
All right. Well, because it's out at work. What I do here, and like I was saying earlier, when they were busy trying to come at me for some nonsense, they brought up the fact that I do a show Monday night. And I was like, oh wow, you guys are really going to ask me about this, huh? And I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm good with it. What do you want to know? And it kind of, blows their mind and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I do this, and I believe in these things, and I know that some of this is true, and, I got to take the rest of it with a grain of salt type thing. But what I enjoy more than anything is I'm able to take the public snickers and all that kind of stuff after I talk about what I do, and on Mondays, That's not a problem for me. I don't care, if you want to sit there and laugh at it. See ya. What I like is that later on, though, is that slowly but surely you'll get some people trickling to you asking you things. Well, what do you think about Bigfoot? What do you think about, UFOs? And what do you think about, do you know any psychics or anything like that? I'm like, yeah, I know some that I could put you in touch with, And it's just like, where were you people when they were busy laughing at me and thought it was all just funny stuff, you know?
That's the thing. It's very, very taboo. I decided at a certain point that I was just way too old to be concerned about people thinking I was a lunatic. Mm-hmm. So honestly, I don't care anymore. And what I started to do on my book, Psychic Intuition, is that I started to talk to anybody and everybody who would listen. I would bring this topic up at dinner parties in incredibly conservative groups of people. I'd bring it up at the store. Anywhere I was, I'd talk to people. And it's the same thing. What I've discovered is everybody, almost everybody without fail, if they haven't had their own unbelievable personal experience, they know somebody who has. And they will all come up to me afterwards. Everybody does. And they'll pull me aside and they'll kind of whisper it like, it's some like terrible thing. But the fact is that almost everybody has some experience with some type of paranormal thing. It's just taboo.
Yeah. You want to know what I've started to get more interested in is is racial aspects of these kind of things. You don't see or hear of a lot of people in black communities talking about alien abductions or spiritual stuff. And I've talked to some at work that I work with. I'm like, hey, have you ever seen a UFO? Have you ever seen ghosts or anything? And there's only like one or two. So I don't know if it's like a cultural difference or what's going on there, with the difference like that, because I would expect more diversity out there than middle-aged white. You know what I mean? And I know it's happening. It's just why aren't certain cultures talking about it as open as we are? You know what I mean?
I mean, you could get into a whole bunch of generalizations, like racial generalizations. African Americans, I think, as a group, are probably much more, organized religion-based. Mm-hmm. And this is a huge, no taboo, at least within a lot of religions, so they're probably not going to go there. And, also gross generalization, but, I think that there's, at least with a lot of African Americans who I've known and spoken with, there's an even it's like an even deeper fear of the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fear, and so it's more like, nah, I'm not getting involved in that.
Yeah, and I had a guy on Ochani Lule talking about Santeria and that religion and how it's been pretty much persecuted down in South Florida, and it was really good to get his opinion on it and see how much of it is really racially biased and motivated, and how for that and talking with other coworkers, how I can see why a lot of it's not discussed in their culture, and it's a shame, but, it's just the way it is, I guess, and you got to sit and wait and pick your conversations with your individuals that, will have that kind of conversation with you. And that's another aspect of it that I like dealing with, especially at work when I talk to people about this kind of stuff, But one thing I won't deal with is Bigfoot. I can't do it. I can't do the Bigfoot conversation. The kid in me, I made a long ranting post for a while on there. Hey, the kid in me wants this 7-foot monkey man to swing from trees and hide from people and throw rocks and knock trees and build huts and hide and run across highways and have a good time, right? And shake some trailers here and there, steal some candy bars. But the adult in me knows damn well that the odds of a 7-foot, 400-pound monkey man hiding in the woods forever from humanity is impossible. The logistics alone of this thing eating, how can you not know it's around? And I hate the argument about how clever this is, that he's so smart and he can hide from people, and at the same time...
Other arguments. I've heard the arguments they have paranormal abilities.
Yeah, that's the new thing that's starting to come on now, is that they're like these dimensional beings, and I'm like, okay, now we're talking, At least you're giving me an out, to say why this thing can disappear and appear, He just leaves when he wants to go get something to eat,
So I guess you don't have a lot of cryptozoologists on your show, then?
No, not really. I mean, I would, but I don't know. I'm not digging it too much. Really, what a lot of it killed it for me is the Finding Bigfoot show. And that bozo there. talking about stuff. I got into it on Twitter with him a few times. He's like, I don't know, I said something, and he went on some rant against me, and I was like, whatever, dude, I was like, I'm not going to sit and deride you from looking for this thing, okay, because that's just would be fundamentally stupid, because we're all kind of in the same business of looking for weird things, but, go for it. I want you to find one, because I don't want anyone to call you crazy any more than me, so do us all some good and dig up some bones, would you? So, it's loud here, pal.
We all have our paranormal limits. I think it's, and it's like what I was saying before, I had my paranormal limits were like, okay, ghosts I can finally go for. I can go for this like psychic mediumship stuff, but UFOs, no. And all of a sudden that sort of got knocked out of the ballpark. And you never know when your belief system is going to get knocked out of the ballpark, and you don't know for what reason. Whether it's because somebody's going to convince you that they got really good evidence, or because all of a sudden you come face to face with something that you can't explain.
And that's a good point you bring up, because usually on a lot of stuff that we discuss here, I'm, just sell me. Give me a good argument. Give me some logical conclusions, and I'm in on it. I'm down for whatever you got to say. Like I was saying. Now, and opening the door to the interdimensional Sasquatch, great. Now we're right up my alley. Now we're talking, Just let me know how he opens that door, and we'll be good. Or see him, go behind the tree, and then he's gone. He's like the Maxwell Smart of cryptozoology world,
Oh, good. With a really big phone shoe.
Yeah, exactly. And it just is crazy how he can be this clever animal one minute, and then the next he's still this kind of just dumb muggy man. He can fire but he can hide from you, and you're never gonna. And he can bury his own people, and hide the bones of dead other Sasquatches, and yet you never see any traces of him feeding in a field, or you never even see dead carcasses from animals or anything like that. It's just, the Finding Bigfoot show really didn't do me any favors for a while there after watching that. It's like, oh man, and who knows, like I said, people may be seeing these things out in the woods.
I couldn't understand for the longest time how any of this stuff was connected. I didn't get it. And every once in a while I sort of, I'll make more connections, but I tend to agree with you. I have a really hard time with that also.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. The only thing I'm going to do is keep an open mind on it. I mean, I'm certainly not going to shut it out, but right now you got to sort of show me the money.
Yeah. And it's like you said, maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong all the time. I don't give a damn. I'll say something stupid every show. I'll say something retarded. And that's what kills me about like most other shows that are out there. At least with this show, I haven't really had a lot of people try to like come at me for saying something stupid, because it's like, yeah, so what? I'm like, yeah, it happened, and it's going to happen again, and it's not really going to matter because who really cares in the end? Just come for a good conversation and call it a day, right?
Yeah.
But what do they got? 6 minutes left. Ay. So, how long have you been doing the actual the detective work and getting in with law enforcement agencies like that? And how long have you been helping out with cold cases there?
I've been doing that for many years now. And that's actually my real, first love on doing this kind of work. I love that kind of stuff. A lot of psychics just don't have the stomach for it, because it takes a certain amount of, on a psychic level, you're going to be getting involved in really icky things. So if you don't have a way of keeping your emotions kind of under control, you're going to have a really rough time. So But I like it because, I mean, I like puzzles, I like mysteries, I like solving things. So I can sort of keep this little intellectual, part of me going when I'm doing this kind of work. But yeah, it can get pretty, very intense. Because usually you're dealing with homicides.
Yeah. And kidnappings and just nastiness,
Yeah.
And
sometimes you're not only tuning into, say, the victim who got murdered, sometimes you end up really sort of inadvertently, I've had it happen where, I end up tuning into the suspect, and you turn into some of them, and all you want to do is kick ass. It's just, ugh. They're absolutely vile and disgusting on a psychic, energetic level.
Do you ever feel like some of them are possessed or anything like that? You ever get that feeling?
No, not that I remember. Not possessed, no. And you know what? I wouldn't be that focused on it anyway, because for me, what I'm really always focused on is, how can I be of service to family of this person and to the actual victim, even though they're not here. How can I be of service to them? So you got to keep your mind is always on that mark all the time. So if you get involved with it, are they possessed or not? Who really cares?
Inconsequential, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good to try to keep that separated, and keep focused on the goal of helping someone.
Yeah, and a lot of times you really can, which is always amazing to me. When you can corroborate stuff that's been going on with the police investigation, like locations of bodies or names of witnesses or descriptions of suspects or that kind of thing, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's working with nothing.
Is that where you primarily use the remote viewing aspect?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I use remote viewing a lot for that. Yeah. And, you can also use, psychometry if they happen to give you an object that belonged to the victim.
Okay.
You can use that, too. But mostly it's a form of remote viewing.
Do you ever have to... Well, it's remote viewing, so you don't ever have to be near the location, but do you feel you get better results if you're closer? Or what really helps you out the most to help a client?
Well, let me tell you, when I give private readings, I always ask for questions in advance. I don't want people to give me information. I just want their questions, okay? And if they have photos, to give me a photo. And what I do is a form of remote viewing for every single private reading that I'm doing, so they don't really realize that, they pay me for a half hour, usually they're getting 2 hours worth of me. But they don't know that. The reason why I like to do an advanced reading is because it is a form of remote viewing in every single case, and I like the idea of working with as little data as possible, because when I, get on the phone or see them in person, or however I'm doing the reading, my mind is already working a million different angles. Because I'm working off of now stuff that I can see and guess, and, now my thinking and feeling is getting involved, so it's going to mess up the purity of my psychic information. So I actually sometimes think it's easier to work on very little to no information than it is to actually be on the spot. Although sometimes you're on a spot and you just go, wow, and you feel a very strong vibrational thing going on. So, it can work both ways. But I like the remote viewing piece of it. Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I actually got into the remote viewing stuff through Winter Lake, and Brooks Agnew helped me with some meditation to help slow me down at the end of the day and stuff like that. And especially at work sometimes when you talk about dealing with nasty people, that definitely helped out a lot. We are just about out of time here, and I want you to go ahead and tell people where they can find you, where they can check you out if they want a reading, your radio show, and who you have coming up this week. All that good stuff.
Okay. All my information is on my website, which is theskepticalpsychic.com. You can find out about my radio show, Hot Leads, Cold Cases. Actually, I have a woman named Tracy Austin coming up on my show this week. She's an expert in alien abductions, speaking of which.
Nice.
Yeah. And information about my book, Psychic Intuition, Everything You Ever Wanted to Ask But Were Afraid to Know. You can find information on my website, or you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Nook, they all have it. And private readings and other information. I got a prophecy page. I have ghost photography. I got a bunch of things on my website. It's all there.
Oh, my God, I didn't even get to your prophecy aspect either. See, there's just too much of you to talk about and have fun, and we got to do this again. Hopefully, you don't mind coming back. It wasn't that much of a train wreck, I hope.
So, you can get the New Orleans people get a Skype thing together. That's always good.
Yeah, that always helps. And Joe does say hi too before you head out. She said Tracy Austin is a friend of Joe's there, so.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
He knows people, I guess, right? As they say in the business. So, that's our show tonight. I want to thank Nancy for coming on the Mind Cemetery here, and sorry for the technical difficulties, but we get it right eventually, right? Or at least semi-right.
Thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
No problem. It was great. I loved it. And we'll work on getting you back again here in a couple months at least. We'll do a nice quick turnaround because a lot of people in the chat room definitely liked hearing you tonight.
Oh, that's great. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Well, have a good night. Thank you.
Yes.
And that's our show tonight, folks. And we are out. Coming up on the show calendar, we have Bridget Nielsen. No, not the actress. No, she is a starseed hybrid abductee type guest that we're going to have come on and talk to us. Really interesting story she has with her family. I don't know if Joe knows about her, but good stuff. And then in December, of course, we are going to have our favorite psychic, Michael Gorley, is going to come back on, Nicole's favorite, and he'll be on to do a little bit of readings for everybody if you want to. And then we have, of course, our year-end review show on the 17th, and then a couple holiday replays, because if we could have the Southern Command play us out here tonight. Thank everybody for coming out tonight, and have a good time. See you next week. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Mind Cemetery. You can join us every week, Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. If you're not able to catch our show live tonight, you can always download us on iTunes and listen to all our archives on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network homepage. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, as well as visit mindcemetery.com. Finally, a special thank you to producer and owner of the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, Joe Montaldo, for all his hard work each and every week. Be sure to visit the UFO Paranormal Radio Network homepage for archive updates nightly. Good night.
For Asia, they've been seen. And so I guess, and in Russia, in Russia, I believe they call them the Alma. So they've been seen all over the world. And a whole bunch of them have been seen here in the United States. I haven't seen one, but I heard one. And people have asked me, well, how can you be sure that's what it was? Well, I can be sure what it wasn't. It was in Louisiana, and the forest, the floor of the forest. If you know what grapevines look like. Now imagine grapevines growing on the floor of the forest, except that they're about 1 inch to 2 inches thick. And it's just all a net of this stuff on the floor of the forest. You can't walk on it. Heard something huge walking. I cleared out of the forest and back into my backyard. And whatever it was that was huge and walking in the forest, the best I can tell you is it screamed. And I've had people say, well, maybe it was a panther because they do that. You know, they'll scream. No, look, I know what that sounds like. This was no panther. As to steal a phrase from a famous politician, I have met panthers, and believe me, this was no panther. To the telephone, caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Kevin, this is Brent from Wyoming.
Hi, Brent.
Jeffrey, I have to apologize for what I'm about to say, but I am glad you got some testing and hopefully find some DNA this next time. But Kevin, you asked the wrong question.
What was the question?
You asked what he heard. I still maintain the mating call of is the same as a slightly enraged mother-in-law.
I don't know.
I'm glad my mother-in-law is not listening.